First, let me acknowledge the people who sent me here, whoever you all were. I don't know if I should be mad at you for making me do more work or for just be appreciative, so I'm going to choose to be appreciative of whoever it is that got me to do the last lecture. I appreciate that. My name's Colavito. Most of you know me. A lot of you know me. I have degrees in philosophy, political science, education, and I'm going to try to talk about each one of those today. And just to let you know, I'm going to violate at least 2 rules of giving a speech. I'm going to talk way too fast. I'm going to say way too much. That's just what's going to happen. When I was originally asked to come here and do my last lecture, I got a little nervous. I thought I was being fired. Like, why would they tell me to come do? Then they explained, no, it's just a chance to, share some ideas with students. So, it's like, whew, all right, that's good. I could do that. Then when I knew what I was being asked to do, my first thought was, I really don't want to do that. Why don't I want to do that? It's not that I didn't want to give a last lecture. I never really even wanted to give a first lecture, to be honest with you. I don't like lecturing at all. Next one. If I were to lecture, I have 3 basic interrelated pieces of advice that I would give. It's this: if you want something, try to get it. If I'm lecturing to you, that's one thing I'll tell you. If you want something, try to get it. 2, improve yourself in as many ways as you can. And 3, try to get along with, or at least understand, at least on some level, everybody. But like I said, I don't like lecturing. I strongly prefer dialogue, conversing with fellow minds. So if we were in a dialogue, for example, I would ask you about you. What do you love? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? There was a guy named Friedrich Nietzsche, fun guy. He has this quote. He says, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." And I like that. So I'm going to ask you some questions to maybe try to put that into perspective. How much would I have to pay you to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 days a week, and jog 8 miles? Would you do it if I gave you $10 a week? No. $50 a week? Would you do it for $100 a week? There are some people who do it for no money at all. Why? Well, some of them are dedicated athletes. They want to participate in a marathon. They're training. Some of them might be boxers, and they know they're going to be in a battle in a couple of months. They want to be in great shape. Maybe somebody's a firefighter, and they really care about saving people's lives. They want to put that effort in because the person that they become through their effort can do the things that they really want to do. I'll ask another question. How many people here would like a baseball bat smashed into your knee? None. I don't usually get anybody saying yes. Well, in history, there have been lots of people who've done things like sat at lunch counters, knowing somebody's going to smash them with a baseball bat. Why would they possibly do this? Well, the answer is they got out of bed in the morning with a deeply felt conviction, with a why. They're standing up for something important, for justice, so that they and their children and everybody else can have some kind of a better life. You see, when you start your day with a reason, something to accomplish, something important to you, something about which you're passionate, fulfilling, not just, the pizza tastes good, but something that's really important to you, you become a powerful force in your own life and in the world around you. It just starts with the why each day. Well, these are philosophical questions, and the answer to these whys are going to form the basis of your life choices, with the quality of your life depending on both what those choices are and, of course, their execution. Now, again, if we were in a dialogue, I would ask you about what opportunities you thought you had. I would ask you, this is a social or political question, and I would continue to ask you, what talents do you think you possess? What fears, what habits get in your way? How do you address them? I'd ask you to get an accounting of you so you know who you are. I would ask all these questions because I'd want you to search your own mind, your own lives for the answer. I've learned that the search itself changes you. It makes you smarter, better, focused, efficient. See, humans I find to be really amazing things. But we're rarely aware of our own capabilities, our own opportunities. We don't often feel all there is to be felt because we don't know who we're capable of becoming. But since, again, I was not asked here to converse with you, I'll continue with this lecture. Now, it's not that I don't think I have anything valuable to say, and I do love to talk, those of you who know me. But I already know what I think. I think I'm pretty smart, but I'm smart enough to know that I don't know everything. There are things that I think I'm right about that I know I'm wrong about. I just don't know which things, or I wouldn't think them. I told you I do philosophy, and that's a little of that in it. So yes, I do prefer dialogue so I can gain the benefit of other minds to help me get better. And I suppose that's why we're all here, right? We're here to get better. We decided that attending an institution of higher education can help us get better. Okay, so here we are gathered in an institution of higher education. It's not generally referred to as an institution of higher lecturing, although there is a lot of lecturing happening. It's not generally referred to as an institution of higher memorization, although we are asked to memorize a lot. It's definitely not referred to as an institution of higher Googling, but I suppose Google has helped a lot of us over the years. No, we refer to this institution, and many like it, as institutions of higher education. So what do we mean by education? Well, the root's defined by the verb or the word educe, which means, as many of you know, to bring out or to lead. Well, to bring what out? And out of whom? I'll get to those in a second. First, I want to address a common thought about school. At this point, a lot of people might be asking, well, what more is there to school besides memorizing some information and gaining some skills? The premise seems to be that the person enrolling in school does so to get a degree, maybe pick up a skill, get a better job, more money. And now there's nothing wrong with those goals per se. Getting a job, making money, taking care of yourself, taking care of the people you care about, contributing to society, these are all good things. But if we attend school only to achieve these goals, we'll be missing out on a lot. You see, the person you are when you enter school, you have a certain awareness of who you are. You are a certain person at that point. Your goals and your desires are reflected in our sense of self and your sense of self at that point, that early point. And we make decisions based upon the goals and desires for the person that you are at that point. Now, you are often very good people, your own personalities, your own talents. Maybe some of you are good at math. Maybe you're a history buff and you know all about the ancient aliens or whatever that is. Maybe you're a great square dancer. I don't know. The point is that if you seek to continue to satisfy or please only the person you are at the beginning of school, you might actually miss out on your own education. You'd be trying to get power to please the person that you were, not necessarily the person that you might become. And if you do that, you'll be missing out on meeting some super cool person that I want you to meet that can really change your lives. Now, again, the person that you are as you exit school can either be the same exact person you were when you entered school, or you'll have a little more information and skills maybe, good stuff, but you could also wind up being an educated version of yourself when you leave school, and that's special. An educated person is not merely somebody with more knowledge. An educated person is somebody who's developed their faculties. They can see and understand more. Their minds are developed, and that makes them more powerful. Gaining information and facts is helpful, but what you do in school and in life, and this is crucial, what choices you make, what acts you perform, those will determine whether or not you're educated when you exit school. Now let me get back to my earlier questions. I'll answer the second one first. The question was, from whom will we be educing? And the answer is anyone who's open to being educated. Not everybody makes the choice to become educated. You have to want it. You have to be ready for it. You have to do what is necessary, not just passively retain information. And then what are we trying to bring out? Well, that's not so simple to answer, but for now I'll say this. Anything we're capable of, any faculty, any talent, any latent part of you that has not yet found expression, that's an idea of what we're trying to bring out. Birthing a new you can be difficult. It takes time, and it's sometimes painful. But the human brain won't mature without these growing pains. Each of us has pretty much the same model brain as the people who invented things like music and language and commerce and agriculture. All the things that humans have right now were invented by us. The powers necessary to create a society and a culture are sitting in a nascent form, in potential, in each one of us, just waiting to be manifested, waiting to be brought out. But also, when we make the decision to start our education and cultivate these powers, then we start to attract the attention of that super cool person that I mentioned. All right, so how do we start our education? Learning what others have learned is good, only exercise is memorization. Becoming skilled is good, but the skills are just power that is often used to satisfy that beginner version of you. Now, there's nothing wrong with that version of you, like I said, but using energy to satisfy the younger, less developed version of you can sometimes rob you of the energy needed to develop the more mature person of you, the one capable of seeing more and feeling more and doing more. The super cool person that I want you to meet seeks out the mature version of you because they want to accomplish things. They enjoy thoughtful company. They want to find beauty in the world. And they can introduce you to even more cool people. They can help you complete difficult projects. They can help you make it through crises. They can help you find love. They can help you do a whole lot more. And of course, that's the premise of the talk today, right? There's someone I'd like you to meet. But I fear you will never meet them if you don't understand what's at stake in whether or not you get an education. If you do get to meet this super cool person, you're going to thank yourself and you're going to thank everybody who tried to help educate you for getting you there. If you don't get a chance to meet this person, and I am saddened by this thought, you'll probably not even know the difference. Now, some of you are going to say, well, ignorance is bliss, no worries, right? Well, they're showing theirs. This is the actual poem. The quote is not where ignorance is bliss. The poem is where ignorance is bliss, 'tis folly to be wise. Can you see the difference in those two? Ignorance doesn't always mean bliss. Ignorance can bring disaster. I always picture a person on a beautiful afternoon having a picnic on a train track with their back to the train. The train, sounds its whistle in the background, and the person remains blissfully unaware. Yeah, sure, ignorance is bliss. If you don't know the train's coming, you can't protect yourself or the people you care about. And if you're wise, you'll get off the tracks. Okay, so let's say you decide that you want to meet this super cool person. I got some advice. My advice is going to seem a little bit self-serving as well as for your benefit. See, I want to leave the world in capable hands so the people who inherit society's gifts and problems can make the best life possible for themselves and their children and everybody who follows. But I'm also afraid Social Security is running out and I'm going to need you all to fix it. So like I said, it's for both of our sakes. Plus, once you start your education, you will meet this super cool person that's attracted to educated people. In order to make sure that you meet this super cool person, you're going to have to learn something. You're going to have to learn how to discern between wisdom and looking beyond like surface platitudes, feel-good opinions, or the voice of authorities or people you agree with. You're going to need to explore your own mind, push yourself to limits, and see how far you can go. You're going to have to work hard, like I said before, forge habits of excellence, maintain integrity. The super cool person that I want you to meet will not deal with anyone who doesn't put in these efforts. Now, many of the ideas that I'm going to talk about today, they're not really part of a particular course, but they probably will help you in a lot of courses. I recently received an email from a student who said this to me in the email. This is a quote. He said, "It's interesting to me that I think some of the most valuable things I learned from you weren't in the curriculum." Now, hopefully that doesn't mean I'm a terrible teacher and I left a bunch of stuff out of the curriculum. Hopefully it means that I was able to help this fellow mind become more of what he was capable of becoming. And that makes me happy. Now let me get back to the super cool person that I do want you to meet. As I said, this super cool person I want you to meet is not going to appear when you entertain only platitudes. They will show up when you start pursuing wisdom. Now, many of the things that I do say here are going to sound like platitudes, and they will be platitudes if you don't act on them and make them practical and valuable. What do I mean? Let me give a couple of examples. Many people have heard that saying, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? Well, that's a platitude. It's true, but it's a platitude. What's also true is that if you take a bunch of wild shots, you're going to miss a lot of them. You're going to expend a lot of energy. You might even lose the trust of your teammates, or even yourself. If there are fans in the audience, they're not going to like that. It's wise to calculate which shots are likely to help you win and which are just for show or taken selfishly or without regard for the context of the game. Now, without taking shots, you won't score. That's true. If you don't score, you can't win. But calculating good shots, practicing, training, and then taking some, that's wise, and it gives you the best chance of winning. Number two, you've probably heard people tell you, you can be anything you want to be. That's a platitude. We all know that it's not true. Any of us can be anything we want to be. But what is true is that we can be anything we want to be that's within our power to become. Now that's important because it tells us that if we do have a dream and we research what it takes to achieve that dream, then we're going to know where we need to improve. If we're willing to do the work, then at least those things can be within our reach. That's wisdom. I'll do one more. You may have heard people tell you you should take advantage of your opportunities. Well, there are two distinct versions or two interpretations of this platitude. The one you choose to act on can determine whether or not you meet this super cool person that I keep talking about. Now, you could interpret to take advantage to mean something like to get more out of a situation without any extra effort. If you act on this interpretation, you might make some short-term gains. You will not have exerted any extra effort. But note, it's going to be the person that you were at the start who's being pleased, not the person you may have become had you put in the actual effort. The short-term gain is not going to help you in other endeavors. You will not have grown at all. You will not have gained any more powers. You will not have become any better. You might even become worse because you required less effort to achieve a goal. And just like muscles that you don't use become weaker, you might become weaker if you don't put in effort. Now, to take advantage can also mean to avail yourself of an opportunity to improve yourself. If you act on this interpretation, you will grow. You'll learn more about your own powers, you'll develop faculties and talents, and this will have a multiplier effect, since the new you will be able to do more things and see more things and more opportunities in life. Just like joining a gym, though, doesn't itself give you strength, you have to work each week in order to win those victories and become an increasingly better version of yourself. Well, I provided these three little examples just to illustrate that education is gained through effort. We don't gain wisdom without action and effort. Education takes work, and wisdom must be won. Posters and slogans can remind us of our better selves, but they're no substitute for wisdom won. Now, once you get into the habit of fighting for wisdom, of working for your education, you will start to attract the attention of this super cool person that I've been talking about, the one I want you to meet. All right, where might you meet this super cool person, and under what circumstances? Well, first let me tell you where you're not going to meet them. Let's say you and a group of classmates have a class project, and you decide you're going to go to the library, and all your friends go to the library to start the project, and you say, you know what, I'm going to stop by the cafeteria first. So you go to the cafeteria, you start hanging out with your friends, you're having a good time, and you think to yourself, you know what, I'm having fun here, I'm not going to go to the library. I'm just going to ask them to put my name on their work. So you think to yourself, you know, they're not going to say no, so that's pretty cool, right? Well, is that pretty cool? No. The super cool person's not going to like that. Why not? Because they're going to see that you don't keep your word. You may not always do what you say you're going to do. You're going to let others down when they rely on you. You don't seem to care about things beyond your immediate gratification. Now, if you think about it, why would a super cool person want to hang out with you if you treat people like that? But what's wrong with this, you might say? Why wouldn't your group mates help you out if you're in a jam? I mean, they could put your name on their work, and then maybe the next time they'll put your name on their work, let's just say. So, you know, everybody gets points and everybody wins, right? Well, no, not everybody wins. If your group mates let you put your name on their work, and after that they get you to put their name on your work, it might be true that all of you get a bunch of points you didn't earn. And so if the goal is to get the points or the grade, then you all seem to win. But you won't be a winner if the goal is to meet this super cool person who can change your life for the better. The super cool person is going to recognize that neither you nor your group mates in this particular scenario has trained themselves to be any better. Not only will you all be as poorly educated as you were before, but you'll be weaker-willed since you skipped out on the work necessary to accomplish the task. And you might even be in the habit of cheating now. And the habit of effort, you know, is gone from accomplishing goals. You'll cheat instead. If the super cool person ever needs work done properly, why would they rely on a cheater or a weak-willed person? They wouldn't. They'd pass you right by. Okay, what if you do at least the minimum amount of work necessary to get just enough points for the grade you want? Isn't that just efficient? Isn't that totally fine? I mean, the super cool person, they can't have a problem with that, can they? Let's say you bought a book for a course. It's a lot of reading in this course, and you decide, you know what, I'm just going to skim for just enough points to get a passing grade, or maybe just enough points for a B, or just enough points for an A. Yay for you, right? You get the grade you wanted. You didn't have to put in any extra effort. You might call that efficient. You might be happy with yourself. You didn't waste any time on this course material. But the super cool person that I don't want you to meet, they're not going to like this either. As soon as you make the decision to barely get by, or to put in only enough effort to get points rather than learning, this super cool person will leave. They might not even want to introduce themselves to you after that. But why not? You might actually have more time to hang out with them now since you're not spending all your time studying. Well, yeah, you will have more time, but the you'd be is not one the super cool person would care to meet. In fact, even you wouldn't want to meet and hang out with yourself once you realize why skating through points is without actually learning is not only a waste of time, but it actually hurts you. What do I mean? If you don't do the work necessary for something, your faculties get weaker, just like muscles get weaker if you don't exercise them. Your faculties will include things like your imagination, your rationality, your logic, also things like patience and perseverance and concentration. And again, just like weaker muscles, a weaker mind is not only less productive because it'll be less powerful, but it'll be capable of less fun even, because they'll be less aware of what's going on around it. Let's say that you work just hard enough for a 90% on an essay. So you get an A just like somebody who worked for a 95%. You both got the same outcome in your mind, and you did it with less effort. So big win for you, right? Well, again, this super cool person, they're not going to see it that way. They're going to know that as soon as you and the person who got the 95% apply for a job, the person with the 95% will outperform you by 5%. They'll articulate ideas more clearly, they'll communicate better, and they'll probably be used to working harder than you. Your chance of getting the job will go down in proportion to the amount of times that you decided to put in less effort. The super cool person, the one I want you to meet, they're going to know this, and they're not going to want to carry you when you've had ample opportunity to take advantage of an education. There's even more of a reason that this lack of effort hurts you. If you don't develop your faculties of apprehension, your windows into how the world works, how it functions, what beauties and sins it houses, you'll miss out on things like acts of kindness and subtle invitations and veiled warnings and probably a lot of jokes. If you rarely exercise your faculties of apprehension, If all you care to see is what's in front of you, then your vision can become atrophied. You won't be even capable of these other depths. In other words, you'll not only be bored a lot, but you'll probably be boring. What super cool person is going to want to hang out with a boring person? They're not going to. All right, so now I've just said these are the places where you won't meet this super cool person. So where can you meet them? And why would you even want to meet this demanding person anyway? I mean, I know a lot of you are asking that. They seem like high maintenance. Well, they certainly are high maintenance, but it is worth knowing them for your sake and for the sake of everyone and everything that you care about. Let me continue. The super cool person is attracted to a mind that strives for focus, puts in effort, and seeks excellence, like I said before. So when you're studying in the library and your cell phone is muted, the super cool person is going to recognize your focus. If you decide to work really hard on a project or dedicate yourself to tutoring other people, the super cool person is going to want to get to know you. Well, why? Well, if you're someone who knows how to concentrate and not be distracted, the super cool person is going to see that when they need you to concentrate on something, you'll be able to do it for them. Nobody wants to rely on someone who's barely conscious of their own needs. If you work hard on a project for school or for work, this super cool person, they're going to see that if they ever need to accomplish a task, or if they ever need to get something done, you're the one capable of doing it. They're going to want to be around you. All right, when the super cool person sees you helping other people to learn, they're going to also recognize that you're adding power to the world, power that you and all of us might need one day to solve big problems or to create opportunities. You see, the super cool person is going to know that in order to accomplish society-sized tasks or to solve social or worldwide problems, we're going to have to rely on the help of others. These others can help you just like you can help them. And together, many individuals, of course, can accomplish grand things. The super cool person is going to want to know if you're focused only on yourself or if you're willing to take your place alongside others to tackle these bigger issues. Now again, you might look at me and say, well, what's so bad about taking care of yourself? And I'm going to answer nothing. And the super cool person, they're going to be fine with that also. In fact, they'll probably admire those of us who try to take care of ourselves. But the question is, how can we do that best? How can we best take care of ourselves? What's the best way for us to get what we want out of life? Well, that, of course, is a question for the ages, but we do have some clues. And it starts with meeting this super cool person that I've been talking about, the one most capable of helping us get what we want out of life, to help us live a deeply fulfilling, beautiful, wonderful life. Here's the answer to how to meet this super cool person. You meet the super cool person by studying hard, obvious one, learning, developing habits of effort and excellence. You meet the super cool person by developing habits of focus and concentration, tenacity, and by exercising your will. You meet the super cool person by helping those around you to improve and by honoring your word and your commitments. If you do these things consistently, sincerely, with some measure of devotion, one day you will wake up in the morning, you'll look in the mirror, and you'll be introduced to this super cool, life-changing, awesome person that I've been talking about. You see, if you make a decision at some point in your life that you're going to do what Socrates says, if you've heard it say, know thyself, you're going to realize that becoming a great version of yourself, that requires a strong will. Knowledge is wonderful, information is helpful, and skills are useful, yes. But when you exercise your will, when you decide that you will become the best version of you, and then you work each day toward that, then one day you will look in that mirror and you're going to see an incredible person. You're going to see someone who takes maybe time to judge, but then they swiftly execute these rationally arrived at decisions. You're going to see someone who honors commitments when you look in the mirror. You're going to see someone who's steadfast in pursuing things like justice, while other people are out there becoming distracted by trinkets and games. You're going to see a person who's willing to help others, protect them, a person who's continually improving. You'll be destined to accomplish great things because you'll be focused on striving to be a great version of yourself. Again, obviously the super cool person in the mirror is going to be you if you do these things. Now, once educated, you'll have brought out of yourself those talents, those faculties, those passions, all that stuff that's necessary to achieve great things, to live well. So you see, you have a choice when you begin school or you begin your journey. You have a decision to make. You can either remain exactly the person you are, or seeking to desire the person you are at that early version, or you can seek to become this educated person. But think about it. Past versions of ourselves, they're the ones that are more self-centered. They're the ones that are even weaker-willed. They never put the effort into things. They haven't exercised their mind. They haven't pushed themselves. There's a famous guy with a famous quote. You probably all heard this. Albert Einstein. He said, great spirits have always encountered violent opposition from mediocre minds. Well, sometimes those mediocre minds are ours when we're unwilling to become the great mind we're capable of. Now, I know that sounds harsh, but we are great spirits in potential. And sometimes all it takes is getting out of our own way. But great spirits is not enough. We have to have that great mind, that strong mind. Plato, one of my favorite philosophers, he has a tale he tells us about a charioteer. Picture a person who's riding a chariot, with their horses. If the charioteer is really weak and they can barely hold on to the reins of the chariot, but the horses are big and powerful and strong, then the chariot's going to go far and fast. But if the person's not in control of it, they can really hurt people without directing where the chariot goes. They might even hurt themselves. But picture the opposite. Picture a very powerful person who has the reins and they're totally in control of it. But instead of having big, powerful, strong horses, there's a bunch of chihuahuas. I don't know why I pick on chihuahuas, but there's a bunch of chihuahuas guiding it. Well, you might be in control of that chariot, but you're not going to go anywhere. What we need is a strong, powerful charioteer and powerful horses. Now, obviously, Plato gave us this tale to talk about our mind and our passions. He said, we do want powerful horses, we do want powerful passions to get us places, but we also have to have the mind that's in control of that. So we don't want to damage people or ourselves or anyone around us. Okay. So those of you then who've decided that you want to learn about who you are, you want to develop these capabilities, you want to learn how to unleash this great spirited nature, but you also have to work really hard for the mind to be strong enough. Those of you are going to come to know, come to see, and come to feel, and come to apprehend a lot more of the world. And you'll be in a much better position to change it. Remember what I said earlier about the model brain that we all have, right? When we cultivate our faculties, when we exercise them, as they develop, we'll start to have new visions and new powers brought out of ourselves. These are exactly the same powers that created things like art and architecture and technology and dancing and societies and cultures and languages and cell phones and I don't know why I lump cell phones in, but all those really cool things that human beings have right now. Nobody was surprised by that, but the older people are like, why cell phones? Anyway, the person you are when you begin school or begin your journey in life, you have so much latent power, so many possibilities. Well, the question then is, how do we develop them? How do we get the most out of school and out of life? Well, I often use the analogy of a training camp to explain this, the development of our minds through our system of education. Any training camp will do, but my example will be a Super Bowl, a training camp for football. Everybody here knows what the Super Bowl is, so I'll use that as my example. What is the Super Bowl? The Super Bowl is the pinnacle achievement for a football player. It's the biggest achievement in their football life. It might even be the biggest achievement in their whole life. All right, so if that's the biggest achievement for a football player, how do you get to the Super Bowl? Do you just, one morning you decide, I want to be in the Super Bowl, so you drive down there, you start warming up with the players? Is that how you get there? No. You get arrested if you did that. So how do you make it to the Super Bowl? Well, a couple days or a couple of weeks before the Super Bowl, you have to win a playoff game. In that playoff game, you're going to play against a team. Do you think that team you're playing against are just going to say, you know what, we won this last year, you take it this year? Do you think they're just going to hand you the game? No, they're not going to hand you the game. They're going to fight really, really hard to humiliate you and crush you and everything they can do to stop you from getting to the Super Bowl, because that's where they want to go. They're going to be a team that's well skilled and tough and all that other stuff. They're going to look at you the way a hungry lion looks at an injured gazelle, if you want an image there. You get the picture. So how do you even make it into that playoff game to earn a right to play for in the Super Bowl? Well, the same story. You got to beat another playoff team the week before. Are they going to just hand you the game? No, they're not going to hand you the game. They're going to fight through you. They're going to want to humiliate you if you let them. They're going to try to crush you. You got to be tough and powerful and ready to lay it on the line. All right. Well, how do you even make it to the playoffs, right? To even earn the right to play in a playoff game, to play in another playoff game, to play in the Super Bowl? Well, the answer to making it to the playoffs is, of course, you got to win a lot of games during the season. Now, you might not win all the games during a season, and as a New York Jet fan from my youth, it pains me to say that only one team has ever done that, the Miami Dolphins, so we give them credit. They've won all their games in one season, but you don't have to win all your games. What you have to be, though, is consistently good. You have to win a lot of games to earn the right to be in the playoffs there. Now, think about a season. During any season, there'll be some days where you might have dropped a pass and everybody hated you. There'll be some times when you caught the big pass, everybody loved you. Maybe you were injured for a couple days or during one of those times. The point is you have to be good enough consistently to earn the right to play in the playoffs. Now, as I'm talking about this Super Bowl, again, I want you to think about not just the game of football. I want you to think about any Super Bowl of your life. What kinds of things that are big to you? Do you want to be in a band? Do you want to have a family? Do you want to start a business? Those are the kinds of things I want you to think to yourself when I talk about getting to the Super Bowl. What's the Super Bowl of your life? All right, so how do you even get on a team? Do you just walk onto a team and say, I want a job? You can't do that. The answer to how to get on a team is you have to go to a training camp and you have to show some promise. You got to let people know that you got some talents. Just like people in school today, we've all shown society enough promise that we've been given an opportunity to make the team, to personally shine, but also to work together for a larger victory, maybe even a Super Bowl. Now, before a season starts and each week in between games, we all have an opportunity to train, to get better. Now, schools like this, as is life, it's a potential training ground. Let me give you an example. Let's say that there's a coach in one of these training periods. They say to the players, I want everyone to take 20 laps around those goalposts. So, then the coach goes away and someone looks up and says, the coach never said how to get around those goalposts, so they hop on a moped and they just drive around the goalpost 20 times. They think, I just got out of that, right? Well, let's jump ahead to a game, or even the playoffs, or even the Super Bowl. What's going to happen when that person has to carry the ball, when it really counts, when they had spent all their time and all their training periods trying to get out of work, or just technically fulfilling the literal commands of the coach, rather than actually trying to improve themselves? I'll give you a scenario. Let's say you're on the 9-yard line, your team's down by 5 points, 6 points would be a touchdown to win, 2 seconds left in the game. So if you score a touchdown, your team scores a touchdown, you'll win the game. And the team looks at you and decides they're going to give you the ball. If you make it to the goal line with the ball, your team wins. If you don't, you lose. This is a long season, tremendous amount of effort, a lot of people involved, all of it's on the line right now. Let me ask you these questions. At that moment, is it going to matter how many people bought your jersey during that season? Is it going to matter who cheered for you a couple games or who booed for you those games? Is it going to matter if you're funny on the field and everybody laughed at your jokes? Is it going to matter if the coach praised you for accomplishing those 20 laps super fast because they didn't know you took a moped instead of actually running? None of those things is going to matter. What will matter is pretty simple. Do you have the lung capacity to fight through all those people who are going to try to stop you? Are your thighs powerful enough to carry you through all those people who are going to be fighting really hard to crush you? Are you used to the physical pain? Are you used to the mental exhaustion or the psychological trauma? Are you used to these things enough to not let them stop you now? Because if this is the first time you've ever pushed yourself, good luck. You see, the time to train for the Super Bowl is now, in the training period, in school. Picture right now the times that you might be in front of, let's say, a business investor or a potential employer. Do you want to articulate your position 90% or 95%? This isn't the time to skate by. Can you see now why that super cool person is not going to show up those times that you get credit for other people's work? Or when you thought like having some fun one afternoon is more important than honoring your word and fulfilling your commitments? Super cool people want to give themselves the best chance to win. And they do so by training hard and putting in effort, seeking excellence, and working with others who do the same. Super cool people are far less concerned with looking good than they are with being good. No excuse is going to help you cross the finish line, or sink a basket, or love a child, or build a business. Whatever you desire, whatever you want out of life, there are steps to achieve it. For football, it might be running fast, or being able to catch a ball, or calling the appropriate plays. For you, maybe it's learning a language, or getting a good degree, or saving money for a house or something. It doesn't matter. Whatever your goal, there are steps to achieve that goal. And those steps often require us to be well trained. So clearly, that super cool person that I talked about earlier, the potential you in each one of us, they're the only ones capable of it winning at such a high level. You want that person on your team. A team full of those people can make history. Many of the drafters of the U.S. Constitution, for example, were these educated people. If you've heard of Nelson Mandela, he used his education and his spirit to resurrect a country from its own ashes. Not an easy thing to do. These aren't the only examples, obviously. There are plenty of people, regular people that you meet every day. They've overcome very real struggles. They value themselves enough to become a greater version of themselves. Their small victories are profound in their own lives. So each of us has this great potential. But each of us must decide which version we're going to be in the future. The future, that's of course an interesting concept. It's tough sometimes to think about the future because like everything happens right now. But let's think about the future for a second. Right now is actually the future for a past version of you. This, of course, means that present you is just the past version of a future you, if you're following. So just like the place you are in society right now is the result of the actions and decisions of a past you, your place in a future society is going to be the products of the decisions and actions of you right now, today. For example, I'll give you an example. Let's say that you, present day you, takes a bite of a hot piece of pizza, burns your tongue. Well, if future you could say something to present you, what do you think they'd say just before you took the bite? Stop, don't take that bite. All right, let's think about this on a larger scale. What might a future you say to a present you if given the chance? I'll give a couple scenarios. It's possible a future you could say something like this: why didn't you study to pass that math test? You had a syllabus. You knew there were tutors. Why did you just blow it off? Just because it was frustrating? I know playing ping pong was fun, but I have to spend a lot of money and retake this class. This future you could also say something to you like this: why don't you go and talk to so-and-so at that barbecue? I really liked them, and now I'm never going to know what could have been because you didn't go up and talk to them. I knew you were nervous, but at least you could have tried. That's one possibility. But there's another possibility. It could go differently. A future version of you could say something like this to you: thank you so much for skipping that party that one Saturday night. Thank you for taking the extra shift at work. Thank you for studying after that shift just to get a better grade. I now have enough money to put down on a car, and my grades have gotten me a pretty good job. This future you could also say to you something like this: thank you so much for going up to so-and-so at that barbecue and talking to them. Even though it didn't work out maybe, we're still friends and their coworkers are a perfect match for me. I might have a chance with their support, whatever. The point is that there's going to be a time in the future when we're going to look back on our past selves and we won't be able to change a thing. If you want a peek of what that's going to look like, just think about any past decisions you've made that you might like to take back. It makes sense for us to start trying to make these great decisions today so our future selves can be in a better position to succeed, and also to be enjoying life. And just like present you, the person you are right now, feels every consequence of the decisions that you've made in the past, the person you're going to become, future you, they're going to feel absolutely everything that you feel, because it's you. The point is, you have a lot of power over a lot of lives. They're all you. Choose wisely. Okay, knowing that the quality of our lives will depend on the decisions we make and the habits that we form now, it makes sense to train ourselves every day to be the best version of ourselves so that we can, we want to be not just trying to get by, we want to be the best versions we can be. I skipped a line, and I'm not going to go back. Well, all right, why do we want to do this training anyway? It's hard to do this training, right? Why do we even want to work so hard to become a better version of ourselves? I mean, if we think about it, lots of people, they make money, they have fun, they don't seem to put nearly as much effort into their lives. Yes, that's true. Some people do seem to have a measure of success without putting in effort to become educated. But they are still incapable of feeling the depths of passion, the joy, the empathy, and a lot of other human possibilities that the educated mind can feel. This is a difficult idea to get across. With wealth, we might have the power to please the past version of ourselves, but no amount of money can purchase an educated mind. Thus, all the joys and the fulfillment and the satisfactions available to an educated mind, they will be out of reach for these other people. And like I said earlier, they might not even know the difference. Of course, being educated actually can help you achieve the dreams of all the versions of you. You will be better at winning whatever game you play, but you'll also enjoy it a lot more. Let me talk about play for a second. There are two types of play. One type of play is where there's a victor at the end, like the Super Bowl analogy, right? Like if you were competing with other people to get a job and you got the job, well, you won. But there's another kind of play where winning looks a little bit different. And this is the kind of play where we play just for fun. Our training to become educated can actually help us with both. Keep in mind, the you that you become through training and education will be capable of seeing more and feeling more and enjoying more. Now, of course, you'll also see more of the sins of the world, but that puts you in a better position to try to change them or fix them or avoid them. For example, when I was young, I thought that I would be the happiest person in the world with a mini bike and a BB gun. True story. I have since found out that there are many superior joys to a mini bike and a BB gun. I grew up. I matured. See, the educated person is one who's cultivated their mind and their spirited nature, and they have control of both. The uneducated version of ourselves, that uneducated person, they're still usually ruled by that initial ego. This is taken from a book I'm working on, but it kind of lays it out. Where the ego desires things like pleasure and fame and freedom, like I'll do what I want, the mind desires things slightly different. It desires things like love and accomplishment and autonomy, which is different than freedom. Now, the ego isn't bad. I don't want that to be out there. The ego is not a bad thing. I want you to picture your ego as a big, strong brute that's powerful and fiercely loyal to you, but they make snap judgments and they fly off the handle a lot. Wouldn't it be nice to be in somewhat of control of that? An educated mind and a strong will, that's who can gain that control. While individuals now, we've been talking about individuals, well, individuals can do a lot. Acting in concert with other minds, that provides us more opportunities for even greater accomplishments, right? Since anything that any of us does affects other people positively or negatively, it will make sense to want to work with other educated minds. Think about a democracy for a second. A democracy is just a collection of minds, right? Each one of those collections of minds will contribute to the will of the people. But a democracy requires people to vote on decisions. A democracy is not really about multiple voters. A good democracy happens one person, one mind at a time. When you make decisions in a democracy, a lot of people raise their hand. Each one of those people will either raise their hand or not based upon what's in their mind, what's in their brain. So we have to arrive at decisions on our own. Now the quality of the decision that we each make and the quality of the collective decisions of all the voters, that's going to be related to how educated we are in the terms that I've been talking about. Educated people can work with other minds on problems because they can control their individual egos. Remember the charioteer example I gave earlier? Educated people realize that a lot of the challenges before us are larger than any one of us. We often need to tackle big problems together. We simply have got to get behind seeing everything from this small perspective of our individual selves. Now this is not to say that we don't individually count. We do, and a lot. It is to say that an ingredient for making our individual lives better is to make sure that our society runs properly. Okay, so what can educated people do then to have this better run society? Well, I have two primers, two pieces of advice. The first one I call the lens. Many people have probably seen this. Small minds discuss people, mediocre or average minds discuss events, and great minds discuss people. Well, this could count as one of the platitudes I talked about earlier. Of course, we should all talk about great ideas. But let's look into this for the wisdom in it. Let's look beyond the platitude. What does it mean to say small minds discuss people? Suppose I started a story and I said, I forgot who it was, but did you hear about the person being investigated by Congress for possible tax fraud? Well, most of us would have maybe an immediate idea in our mind about who it was, but we'd also probably have a bunch of questions. We'd say things like, well, what was the evidence? What evidence was found? How do they find out about it? Are the allegations serious? We would be showing at that point that we can have a sense of objective analysis to ascertain truths. And once armed with what's true, of course, we can act accordingly. But what if I said something like, Bernie Sanders was being investigated for possible tax fraud? Well, the Bernie Sanders team will get heated and disdainful, and it's just the Republicans out to get him. But what if I said, wait a minute, I was wrong. It's actually the Koch brothers or Trump, or just pick somebody else. Well, the very same people will turn around and say, it's good, someone's finally catching up with those bad people. When we discuss people, we often lose our level of analysis, and we rely upon our reactions. That's why we say small minds discuss people. Unless we want to live in a society that's governed by power alone, not justice, fairness, democracy, law, we cannot allow our level of analysis to be determined by a person and not by facts. The second one says mediocre minds discuss events. Okay, well, events are how we perceive things, right? Something happens, we think about it, we react, or maybe we react and think about it, which shouldn't do, but we interpret an event when it occurs. Otherwise, we wouldn't take notice of it. That's fine. But recall the difference between the educated and the uneducated mind that I talked about earlier. It was not a matter of information or skills. It was a matter of having developed the powers of the mind beyond ego, beyond the now, beyond our immediate desires and reactions. If we only focus on an event as it is immediately interpreted by us, without reflection, without engaging other minds, we often perceive it from the immediacy of ego. In other words, we jump to conclusions. What do I mean? When we witness an event, we have an immediate interpretation of it. We categorize, we judge the event. And the event can sometimes look like other events that we've also already evaluated to be a certain way. And it leads to, of course, a perception of a pattern. But to view an event as an event, and then to make the leap of comparing it with other similar or like events, we've already made a judgment. The judgment, of course, will appear to be accurate to us because the evidence seems to fit this pattern. Have you ever heard a song and suddenly you were back in 8th grade walking on the beach or at the mall or whatever? It works something like this. When we experience something important to us, it could be a danger or a trauma or a joyful event, whatever, our brain builds a memory. It builds like a neural link, and we store those neural connections as a memory. The more passionate or the more joy or the more impactful, the stronger the memory. Now, sometimes when a part of that pattern of the web lights up, the whole thing lights up. Like let's say we hear that song again or we smell that perfume, suddenly the whole pattern lights up and we feel like we did back in 8th grade or whatever. Does everybody understand what I mean? That happens to most of us. Events can have the same effect. when something important happens to us, a memory of a trauma or a joy, and then something occurs that reminds us of that, sometimes the entire net lights up, and then we see the event just like the original, even if all the elements are present or not present, whether they're present or not. That's why I say, or we say, mediocre minds discuss events. Not because we shouldn't discuss events, but because many times we judge an event in terms of our own past and not on the basis of the elements of the new event. Now, we often judge an event to be the same as the past because some elements are similar. That's what I was saying. And more significantly, we sometimes pile up these interpretations, and we can truly believe them because we believe them to be just like the original event because they fire up the same parts of our brain, and we actually feel them to be that way or see them to be that way. So we might even see like an epidemic sometimes when they're really maybe isolated or partly similar events. All right, the last one says great minds discuss ideas. Well, we discuss ideas because these are the things, these are the principles that we're trying to maximize or minimize or otherwise highlight. These are things like fairness or justice or equality or safety or equity. We should seek to discuss these things in their presence in events because these are the very reasons we're engaged in political discourse at all, right? We want to change some behavior, or we want to fix an economic or social condition. We want to make the world safer. We want more opportunities. So yes, great minds discuss ideas because great minds operate beyond ego. Rather than trying to prove something that we perceive to be true is true, and then immediately using our big human brain to support our perception with some facts and arguments, what we should do is use our big human brains to try to figure out what the facts and the context are, and that can help check our own interpretations. So these great minds that we talk about, these are the educated minds that I was discussing earlier, the super cool people that we can all become when we cultivate our reason and our imagination, when we exercise our patience and our perseverance. Well, how do we become better at focusing on these principles and not relying upon our reactions to individual people or prematurely judging events? Well, that's the subject of Primer 2. A lot of people have probably heard the phrase, perception is reality. Well, that seems to mean that if you perceive something exists, then it actually exists. Well, I hope by now we see a little bit of a problem with this. It is true that people perceive things, and we often do act upon what we perceive to be the case. But aren't we wrong sometimes? Have you ever been in the mall and you thought you saw somebody that you didn't want to see, like an ex? So you dive into a store, a candle store or something, to try to avoid being seen by them. Well, you act as if you saw that person, and maybe it turns out to not be that person at all. So you go home with a bunch of candles that smell like roses or coffee or something. Let's change it to, I've done that, so don't judge. Let's change that to perception, while real, is not necessarily reality. In other words, it is true that you perceive the thing you think you perceive. But your judgment as to whether that thing actually exists may or may not be accurate. It takes evidence, it takes facts to find out the truth. So we have to separate the actual existence of something from the perceived existence. For example, it might be a fact that a person feels threatened. You cannot argue with that. They feel what they feel. Maybe they felt threatened, and then they took action appropriate to somebody who was threatened, even if they were not in danger. Wouldn't it be better to know if our perception is accurate before we act on it? I'll give you another example. I had a family member, a distant relative, who I always considered to be mean. Because every time I went to visit this person, they didn't smile up, they're always tight-lipped and shuffled around, and I just considered that to be mean. And I told everybody, I got to go visit this mean person again. And after a bunch of years, some of the people who lived in the area of this person, they were talking really fondly of this person. And I was thinking, are we talking about the same person? And then eventually I figured, well, maybe they're just being nice to me. But it turns out that they told me some stories about this person. Here's the story. The person that I thought was mean was actually super nice when they were growing up. They did all kinds of nice things for people. They made clothes for people. They just did lots of stuff for the people in the neighborhood. But at some point, a lot of people in the neighborhood started taking advantage of her. And she got hurt. She kind of withdrew. And by the time I got to know her, I got to know the withdrawn version of her, the one that wasn't super outgoing anymore. So I interpreted it as mean. Now, I was telling a lot of people, don't go hang out with her, she's mean. Now, what did I do? I took a lot of people who had the opportunity to know a really nice person, and I pushed them away. And I took a person who was not mean at all. They were hurt, and I kept nice people away from that person. The point is that I was wrong about her being mean. That's my point. The perception was wrong. So you see the super cool person that you may become, and the version of you that I really want to meet, and I really want you to meet, not just so you can fix Social Security, that's just one of them. You have to have the wisdom and the self-control to base decisions on facts and reality, not just perceptions. In order to do that, we have to exercise self-control. I'll give you another example from a class. Years ago, I had a student in an American government class. One of our assignments is to have the class president select a Supreme Court justice, just a nominee, another person in the class, and then everyone else will act as a senator, and they question the person. Well, in one particular class a few years ago, the one senator student asked a question of the nominee began to answer, and another student, another senator, scoffed, and as soon as she did that, the nominee looked over at her, looked back at the senator who had asked the question and says, I don't know where I was going with this, and kind of stopped talking. Well, as soon as that happened, I looked at the student who scoffed, and she understood what she did. What she did was she had an outburst that stopped us from learning what this person actually had to say. We never even learned, so her initial interpretation is all we got. We didn't get what the person actually wanted to say because of her outburst. If we shut down conversation, we lose the chance to understand people or persuade them. And if we can't remain in control of our own outbursts, how are we supposed to gain the trust of other people? How are we going to get them to listen to us? Think about a voting booth for a second. Voting booths have curtains, right? They have some measure of privacy. Let's say that you get into an argument with somebody. It's about an upcoming election or a policy or something like that. Is it helpful to look at them and say, you stupid, idiotic person, you're greedy, you're just a moron? What are the chances they're going to look at you and say, that's a good point, I am a moron? I mean, they're not going to do that. You changed my mind. No. They're going to either walk away from you, or they're going to pretend to agree with you to shut you up, or maybe they'll fight back a little. But here, think about this. They're going to leave thinking exactly what they want to think. They're going to go vote for exactly who they want to vote for. They're going to contribute money to exactly anyone they want to contribute money to. And they might actually be more wedded to their original idea because you had that reaction to them. They might even be less likely to listen to anyone with your position in the future. The deal is, once they leave, no more chance to persuade them. If we are really sincere in our beliefs, then we're being counterproductive when we make enemies. Now, as I talked earlier about the ego can get wounded. When the ego gets wounded, it lashes out. But our minds do recognize truths. Our minds recognize facts, and our minds know that we can work together to resolve big problems, right? So the question always is, are we willing to let our egos be challenged? Are we willing to let ourselves be governed by our minds? I know it feels really good sometimes to be right, to be intellectually superior and morally superior. Allowing ourselves, though, to entertain different opinions, possibly ones superior to our own, that's not easy. There's this guy named Jonathan Haidt. He wrote this book called The Righteous Mind. You see it up there. The quote that I like from him is this. He says, the main way we change our minds on moral issues is by interacting with other people. We are terrible at seeking evidence that challenges our own beliefs, but other people do us this favor, just as we are quite good at finding errors in other people's beliefs. When discussions are hostile, the odds of change are slight. Now note that Haidt called it a favor when people challenge our beliefs. People who argue with you are not necessarily your enemy. If you were wrong originally after they challenge you, if you were right originally, you're still going to be right after they challenge you. If you were wrong originally, you can correct yourself. You just can't lose by being challenged. The worst case scenario is you learn how other people think, and you might figure out ways of talking to them in the future. Even if you disagree with them, you can find some way of talking to them. Of course, we have to make sure that the thing we're reacting to is actually what the person's saying. Like I said before, we sometimes misinterpret things, right? Sometimes people will react to an interpretation they have rather than what the other person actually said. There's a guy named John Locke, some of you may have heard of. Here's a quote from him. He said, "Words serve not well, neither in civil nor philosophical discourse, when any word does not excite in the hearer the same idea which it stands for in the mind of the speaker." What we have to do is make sure that we're not ascribing motivations or interpretations to other people. We all know that words like fair or equal or justice, these don't necessarily bring the same idea to everybody's mind. So you have to communicate first, not try to persuade or belittle first. If you don't communicate first, you're not even going to know what you're actually arguing. So how can you find out people's actual position? Well, the answer is simple. Talk with them. Not at them, not about them, talk with them. Look at this question. It says, Congress should vote against the bill mandating a federal minimum wage of $15 an hour, the proposed bill. Well, ask yourself, what is this person thinking? There is an answer to this question, by the way. The answer in your head should be, I don't know. You have to talk to them. You have to ask them. Here's one of my favorite little things. Has anybody ever seen The Addams Family? It's important not to let disagreements fester. I wrote, Uncle Fester's the only good kind. It's really difficult to fight through a lot of pent-up emotion and a lot of passion when we allow arguments to simmer too long. We can work through them. It just takes a lot of patience and perseverance, not typically strengths of the ego, but totally in the purview of an educated mind. I want us to remember the intensity of our passions and our reactions is not necessarily commensurate with the strength of our argument or the veracity of our position. Just because we react to something doesn't mean we're right in our reaction. Just like I said before about that perception thing. There's just too much at stake to not try to be the bigger person. I'm going to skip this one because I know we're going through time. I'll go through this, it's a joke, I'll go through this with you later. But it's important to consider, are you all reading this? All right, I'm not going to show you that. I'm going back. Stick on that one. It's important to consider that sometimes we might be wrong about something. I'll give you an example. Let's say that you have this shield, and you think it's a bulletproof shield. So you say to everyone, I really believe this shield is bulletproof. And you're about to go into a gunfight, a gun battle with this shield. You truly believe it's bulletproof. Let's say somebody walked up to you and said, I don't think that's a bulletproof shield. And you said, no, I really believe it, don't judge me. And they say, I really don't think it's bulletproof. Let's say that you're taking your 2 children with you. This person comes up to you and says, that's not bulletproof. Let's say you put the shield down for a second and they shoot the shield and it shatters. Would you be mad at that person? Or would you say, whew, I almost went into a gun battle with that, with people I care about? The point is that our opinions are like that shield. Our opinions are things that we use to protect ourselves, to get us somewhere. If our opinion is a bad opinion or we're not right about something, and no matter how wedded we are to it, it may not work to protect us or help us. If somebody else comes along, whether they're a friend or not, if they can help us, show us how our opinion might have some problems with it, they're a buddy of ours. There's no reason to be angry with them. All right, let me go down here. So, as I said before, the ego in the uneducated version of ourselves, that's the one that lashes out. That's the one that only considers the present. The educated version of ourselves, the educated version rests itself on the overall image of who we are, right? So I wrote here, the ego lives in the moment of the mistake. Everybody makes mistakes. The ego lives in the moment, but the mind will use the circumstances of the mistake to become better. And this, of course, brings us back to the start of the talk, becoming better. However wonderful somebody is at the start of the college career, and I see a lot of faces, and I know many of you are wonderful. Inside, there's still a whole universe of untapped potential. You're not going to bring out this potential by exerting half efforts. You won't be the best version of yourself if you put yourself down or let others down. No matter where you are in life, whether you're at the start of your adulthood or if you've been swimming through the years for a little while, like me, you can make the decision to become educated, to become a better version of yourself. If you're interested in becoming this better version, I have a little exercise for you to consider. I call it relaunching you. Take a step back right now in your mind. Think about your life, you, as if it were a company that you were thinking of taking over, a business you were thinking of taking over. Now, when people are thinking about acquiring a company, they go over the balance sheets, they look at the earnings, the debts, the assets, the reputation, they look at everything. Then they start making decisions about what to keep, what to get rid of. They look at the company, where it's spending its money, what it's spending its time and resources on. They also get an idea of the reputation of the company, right? They're not going to be able to maintain a good reputation of a company if they don't try to live up to its good name, and they won't be able to fix a bad reputation overnight. It takes time to earn trust, but it can be done. So look at yourself this way. Be objective about your assets, your debts, your reputation, and everything. Look at yourself the way you look at somebody that you don't know. If you do this little exercise, you're going to see pretty quickly where you need to put in more focus and more effort. You can get rid of things that aren't benefiting you. Do you have poor habits that aren't benefiting you? Are there people who are dragging you down? Don't be wedded to things you used to do or activities that you used to spend time on. Clean house. Begin these processes. Forge these good habits. Work hard to become successful. Try to focus all your strengths on your goals. I like this little example next to each other. Too often we allow our energy to dissipate. We just do stuff all the time. We don't harness it or to drive us. If you see here a boiling pot, it lets the steam just go all over the place. But if we harnessed it, we can move a locomotive with the exact same stuff. Now, at the beginning of this lecture, I gave you 3 pieces of interrelated advice. I'm going to give them to you again with a little different focus. The first one was, if you want something, try to get it. Well, now we know the quality of our lives, how much joy, how much fulfillment we get out of it. That's going to depend upon which you're trying to please. Are you trying to satisfy that beginner version, that ego version, or are you trying to satisfy your mind? Ask yourself those questions. Why do I get out of bed in the morning? For what goal am I willing to take a baseball bat to the knee for? The second one was improve yourself in as many ways as you can. Now we know how to do a lot of that, right? Do things you say you're going to do. Learn and understand. Don't just try to get points and grades. Become the best version of you. Try for that 95, not the 90. The last one was try to get along with, or at least understand, at least on some level, everyone. Well, now we know the best way to accomplish that, right? Listen to others, especially people with whom you disagree. They're undoubtedly right about something that you think they're wrong about. Plus, if you make them an enemy, you're going to have a much harder time trying to accomplish things that you think are important. So learn to engage in rational discourse. Okay, so if you want to win a Super Bowl, whatever that means in your life, start training now. If you want a future version of you to be joyful and successful, then just make the necessary decisions and then act on them now. If you want to improve yourself and the world, work with other minds. Make them better versions of themselves. And let them help make you a better version of you. I hope you get to meet that person, that awesome version of yourself. And I hope that together, the better versions of all of us can bring a lot of joy and justice to the world. So there is someone I'd like you to meet. And it's that super cool, awesome, wonderful, educated version of you. That's it. Thanks.